let me start by introducing myself. My name is Lisa McCoy. For those of you who don't know me, I'm the CEO for Defeat Duchenne Canada, and it is my great pleasure to welcome all of you to our 30th anniversary launch celebration. In the next 30 minutes, you will hear from our founder, John Davidson, be the first to see our new 30th anniversary video, learn about advancements in research, and find out some exciting events and milestones we're looking forward to in 2025. It's remarkable to think that it was 30 years ago when John Davidson embarked on his initial journey walking across Ontario, pushing his 15-year-old son, Jesse, in his wheelchair to raise awareness and funds for Duchenne muscular dystrophy. This incredibly challenging, unselfish first step is what launched our organization, then known as Jesse's Journey, which has evolved into Defeat Duchenne Canada. What began as a family's mission has led to great advancements in research, increased awareness, and connected families from coast to coast, changing countless lives. Defeat Duchenne Canada remains Canada's only national charity dedicated to ending Duchenne muscular dystrophy. Our goal is to provide leadership in research, advocacy, and support to ensure that every Canadian affected by Duchenne muscular dystrophy can live long and active lives. This has always and will always only be possible because of dedicated support from our countless volunteers, donors, families, and partners. Together, we have made massive strides forward. We are extremely grateful to everyone who has played a role, big or small, in making progress possible. Yesterday, today, and until together, we ultimately defeat Duchenne. At this time, it's my distinct pleasure to turn things over to our founder, John Davidson, to offer some comments of his own. Over to you, John.
Thank you, Lisa, and good evening, everyone. Tonight, we mark the 30th anniversary of Jesse and I crossing Ontario together with a look back and, equally important, with a look forward. You know, sometimes it's hard to imagine that the journey we took across Ontario in 1995 was, in fact, 30 years ago. And yet there are times when I look back and it seems like it was just yesterday. After that shockwave of learning that Duchenne muscular dystrophy has entered our life, my wife Shireen and I began to focus on what comes next. After that shockwave, it didn't take us long to realize that research is the road to a cure, and we knew it was going to be a long, long road. Sometimes people wonder, why did we do what we did as a father and son, setting out on an almost 4,000-kilometer wheelchair push with Jesse, who, as Lisa mentioned, was just 15 years old at that time. Those 124 days we spent together on the road in what quickly became known as Jesse's Journey filled the summer that launched what has grown to become Defeat Duchenne Canada, Canada's only registered charity focusing expressly on defeating Duchenne muscular dystrophy. So the answer to why did we do what we did is pretty simple. I looked in the mirror and I asked myself, what wouldn't you do for your children? We all know the answer. And then you get busy. Like everything else in life, you have to start somewhere. In the beginning, I was all alone in trying to deal with transportation, communications, accommodation, acquiring police assistance, service club help, and media assistance, and a long list of things that we were going to need. And I mean, I had to try and find everything, from vehicles to fuel and batteries to walkie-talkies to running shoes and bottled water to route maps and groceries. And you know what's surprising? Just what can happen when you ask people if they'll lend a hand. When I shared my idea with a few people, they said yes. How can we help? And slowly, that little band of friends who were the first helpers grew to become a small army of volunteers ready to help with whatever needed to be done. And so on the 16th of May, 1995, at the Ontario-Manitoba border, 50 kilometers west of Kenora, in absolutely miserable weather, we set out to make a difference in the lives of all those boys with Duchenne muscular dystrophy, and that remains my passion to this day. From the very start, it became clear that this wasn't going to be easy, but we stuck with it and we claimed our part of the Trans-Canada Highway. And before long, the truckers were giving us a wide berth as they watched us move along the road day after day, and word was starting to spread. Our route took us from Kenora to Thunder Bay and then across and around the top of Lake Superior, where the hills were incredibly steep and seemingly endless. From Sault Ste. Marie and Sudbury, we turned south through the Muskokas before hugging the shoreline of Lake Huron through Goderich and Grand Bend and on to Sarnia and Windsor. In the extreme heat, we were covering 30 kilometers a day, each and every day. From Windsor, we turned and headed for Chatham, London, Kitchener, Toronto, and then on to Eastern Ontario and our final destination in Ottawa. Every day, more and more people came to the side of the road to make a donation. And please keep in mind, we did what we did without a website, which in 1995 was still something new. And people were just starting to use websites, but they weren't comfortable yet making donations. The only way to make a donation at that time was to come to the side of the road, and thousands of people did just that. Moms and dads who brought their kids to the side of the road. They all wanted to see the young boy who was showing people what real courage is all about, and how grit and determination are the keys to reaching your goal and always maximizing your opportunities when they arise. People might think that sitting in a wheelchair is easy. I can tell you it's not. And for up to 8 hours a day on the road, Jesse endured the cold, the wet, the rain, and that incredible heat for 5 months without ever complaining. Perseverance is what let us get our message about the need for research to people along the road. As we learned a lot. And I can tell you that the one thing we learned is that the more passionate you are about what you're doing, the more people will listen. And they'll want to be a part of what's happening because people like to be a part of something successful. Throughout our entire journey, Jesse's well-being was my number one concern. On the night in London, when he asked me in a whisper what time we would be going home, I began to wonder if I had asked too much, if I had maybe done the wrong thing. But Jesse was determined that we were going to finish that journey and we were going to finish it together. And so as our incredible summer continued to unfold, we pushed on toward Ottawa. Along the way, Jesse was always gracious in receiving acknowledgments and words of encouragement, and the donations kept on coming. Day after day, we kept speaking at schools, seniors' homes, churches, and community centers, shining the light on Duchenne muscular dystrophy, a disease that we came to realize few people had ever heard of before Jesse's journey delivered the message. By the time we reached Ottawa, everyone wanted to be a part of the story, even the Prime Minister of Canada. Jesse had touched the hearts of millions of people across Ontario and beyond. And even without a website, Jesse's journey had raised enough money that we could begin to start funding research. Research that we knew was the road to finding first a treatment and then a cure. When Jesse went back to school, 3,000 students were there to welcome him back, and still the demands on Jesse's time continued. I found myself speaking more and more as people wanted to see and hear our story. And they wanted to know more about how they could help. And our ability to fund research began to grow more and more. And as it began to grow, researchers found us. And more requests for funding began to arrive, not just from Canada, but from around the world. And yes, we finally did get a website, which is now the go-to anchor for Duchenne families who want to follow the progress of the research that Jesse's journey launched. In the time following our journey across Ontario, Jesse was recognized for all that he had done and continued to do throughout his life to increase funding for research and to make life better for all those boys with Duchenne muscular dystrophy. I was very proud to see Jesse receive the Order of Ontario for all that he had done to help others. The journey that so many people volunteered to make successful put Duchenne muscular dystrophy squarely on the research map and challenged the research community to find a cure. But first, we had to find a treatment. This has now been done. The drugs that are needed to extend the lives of boys with Duchenne muscular dystrophy are now available in the United States, the United Kingdom, and the European Union. They are not available in Canada. This is not what Jesse worked so hard for. So now comes the new challenge, to get those drugs to all those beautiful boys and their families and give them the help they need. In this, our 30th anniversary year, we are taking a moment to reflect. Life can be reviewed when you look back, but life can only be lived when you look forward. And so there are new challenges on the horizon for Defeat Duchenne Canada, Canada's only national charity laser-focused on funding research that grew out of Jesse's journey. I thank you all. I thank you for always being there. There are still a few more chapters to come in our story, and I hope you'll be there again for us as we move closer to the cure that Jesse fought so hard for, the cure that we know with our energy and our determination is going to be found. I thank you all very, very much. And Lisa, back over to you.
Thank you so much, John. It doesn't matter how many times you hear that story. It is so moving and so inspirational. So thank you so much for everything you did, everything you've done, and for taking the time to tell us that story again. It's truly inspirational. At this time, I'd like to introduce our 30th anniversary video, which features comments and reflections from John and a few others. But before we hit play, I just want to extend a very special thanks to our friends at Brick House. They are one of our longtime partners. They've worked with us to create this video and many others before at a very affordable price. We truly do value their long time and ongoing support. So without further ado.
It was quite a long time ago when we received the news that Jesse had been diagnosed with Duchenne muscular dystrophy. I faced a tough decision, and it was a matter of conscience, because you can't just ignore something that's happening to your child. And I chose a tough road. It was something we did that kick-started us, and Jesse's journey will always be Jesse's journey in my heart, even though it has grown to become Defeat Duchenne Canada. And we're now doing everything we can to unite and help families across Canada. He has taught all of us to look to the future and look to hope in the future. And that's going to make all the difference in the years ahead.
Jesse's journey really has been a catalyst for change all along, and they've really evolved and adapted to the situation at need. They were really funding some of the fundamental basic research, basic science research in animal models that helped us to take the next steps into clinical trials. They were able to pivot very quickly when they realized that Patient registries were a tool that would help bring the community together. I think the future is incredibly promising.
The organization has been so impactful for families and for the disease across the country in creating awareness and creating support for treatments across the country. We've been instrumental in bringing many clinical trials to Canada. We're very proud that we've been able to contribute to the progress made in this disease in the research area, as well as the life expectancy area for the boys. We know there's still lots of work to do, but this team is ready to do it.
Because of the work of John Davidson and all those who've contributed to his efforts over the last 30 years, we're able to offer a much brighter future for Canadians diagnosed with Duchenne muscular dystrophy.
While life has to be lived going forward, we learn when we look back. And as I look back over 30 years, I'm well aware of the power of a dream and what can be done if you don't take no for an answer. And I think that when a community comes together and people work together to try and make things happen, that's when we can make a real difference. And I think that's the message that's been brought forward from Jesse's journey to all those who are connected with Defeat Duchenne Canada as we look at the road ahead.
So as you have heard, a great deal of progress has been made over the past 30 years, and we are not done yet. There is still lots to be done, and Defeat Duchenne Canada is committed to leading that charge, just as John and Jesse did those 30 years ago. This year, we are very likely to see the first ever treatment for Duchenne muscular dystrophy approved in Canada, with others on the horizon. We are seeing more clinical trials coming to Canada and many potentially life-changing treatments being investigated worldwide. The future is definitely looking bright. One of the milestones that we look forward to achieving before the end of 2025 is to have committed our $20 millionth to innovative world-class Duchenne muscular dystrophy research. With the new grant announcements that we will be making after this presentation, we will have already committed $18.7 million. So thanks to our incredibly generous donors, we are very well positioned to achieve this goal by the end of December, and we are committed to making that happen. Over the past 30 years, our organization has provided research grants to many internationally renowned investigators, many of whom are based right here in Canada. We are humbled by the innovative projects they have led and the advancements they have achieved. One of these investigators has kindly agreed to record his thoughts on the progress that has been made in Duchenne over the past 30 years. In my short time with Defeat Duchenne Canada, I have enjoyed getting to know Dr. Craig Campbell, who is with the Department of Pediatrics and Clinical Neurological Sciences at London's Children's Hospital, where he runs the Pediatric Electromyography and Neurophysiology Clinic at the Children's Hospital, and is the medical director of the Neuromuscular and Cerebral Palsy Clinics. He is currently the head of the section of pediatric neurology and the deputy chair of research in the Department of Pediatrics. We are very proud to have been able to support Dr. Campbell's research over the years, and we're very appreciative of his taking time to share his thoughts on the progress that's been made in Duchenne research over the past 30 years.
You know, when I think about my experience with Jesse's journey, and I still think of them as Jesse's journey much of the time because, you know, it was like a really important relationship that I established when I first started to do neuromuscular work. One of my grants with Jesse's Journey, initial grants, was to establish and develop some pilot work and feasibility data for a Canadian-wide Duchenne registry. At the time, it was quite novel. There was just a few countries around the world starting to realize that we would need this kind of research infrastructure tool, and they have funded some work we did into cell-based therapies where we, you know, injected donor muscle cells into boys with Duchenne muscular dystrophy to see if we could improve their arm strength. They funded work on fatigue in boys with DMD, which is really important for us to understand fatigue trajectories. A story of a after one of our education days, of a mom coming to me and saying how excited she was about something she had read about in a mouse model, and that really was the excitement back 20 years ago when I started out in this area. We were excited about a drug that might make a mouse stronger. It's completely shifted. I mean, now Duchenne muscular dystrophy is one of the most active clinical trial spaces, not even just in rare disease, but anywhere. There's just multiple different approaches being looked at in clinical trials. There's drugs approved. I feel very privileged to have been in this area and traveled along with all the people who made that happen, including Defeat Duchenne. We've really made such incredible advances over the last 15, 16 years in the Duchenne muscular dystrophy space, to go from really basic science research into infrastructure and clinical trial planning, to now drugs that are approved in many jurisdictions for Duchenne muscular dystrophy. I think the future is incredibly promising. We're going to make huge gains, not only in new generations of therapies that are approved. I mean, that's natural in this field, that we optimize therapies, but also optimizing when to give therapies for DMD. So I really believe we're in a time of great hope and great advance for DMD.
Isn't it incredible to look back to see the impact John's first steps pushing Jesse across Ontario those 30 years ago has made in Duchenne for countless families, and not just here in Canada, but worldwide. John, I hope you feel an immense sense of pride every single day. And with that, I'm going to turn it back to John to share another very special announcement.
Thank you again, Lisa. When you are young parents, you find that you are full of joy and hope, and we watch and wonder as the kaleidoscope of what our children want to do and what they want to be keeps turning and turning, and the colors of their plans keep changing as they get a little older. And it's exciting for us to watch those dreams and plans unfold. And one day, all of a sudden, it seems like that kaleidoscope of dreams about the future is shattered with the arrival of Duchenne muscular dystrophy. And then life changes. Our children are our pride and joy, and there isn't anything we wouldn't do for them. Our middle son, Jesse, was 5 years old when he was diagnosed with Duchenne, and that's when life began to change for our family. With time, and we all find a way to rally, we find the courage to move forward, doing everything we can to make life better for our children. Again, with time, we eventually get to look back just a little bit And we realized that in a way, it's not about what has happened to us. It's about how we react to what has happened to us. When Jesse was 15 years old, he and I set out to make a difference for all the young boys and young men, and in some cases, young girls and young women with Duchenne. We made a commitment, knowing that we were in this venture for the long haul, knowing that we were not just here for Jesse, because even at a young age, Jesse knew that things that make a difference oftentimes don't happen overnight. In our early days on the road, we were pretty much making things up as we went, I must confess. But very quickly, the project that became known as Jesse's Journey became a well-oiled machine as we were crossing Ontario, a father and son, completing 30 kilometers each and every day. After 5 months where Jesse never saw one day of the summer holidays the way that other kids saw the summer, Jesse's Journey was ready to start funding research on a different road, this time the road to a cure. My walk across Canada, which followed that original wheelchair push 30 years ago, moved us to an even higher position to fund research. And as more and more investigators enter the field, applications for research funding began to arrive not just from across Canada, but from other countries as well. All because of what a young boy on a mission set out to do 30 years ago. Jesse didn't live to see our dream fulfilled, but his legacy lives on. And so to honor Jesse for all that he did for others, this spring, I'm going to take to the road and pay tribute to Jesse for what he did 30 years ago and to celebrate the amazing journey that started us down the long, long research road en route to a cure. I may not be as young as I was 30 years ago, but on June 10th of this year, I'm going to repeat one of the 30-kilometer long segments of highway that Jesse and I covered in the summer of 1995. Back then, it was 30 kilometers a day for each and every day for 124 days. And this year's journey will take me from Port Stanley on the shore of Lake Erie to Victoria Park in the heart of my hometown of London. The goal of this tribute walk is to celebrate a major milestone, as this year we will commit our $20 million to research since I pushed Jesse across Ontario in his wheelchair. The plans for this walk are continuing to unfold. I'm very excited. And my hope is that another small army of volunteers will come forward as they did in 1995. Thank you, and I hope I can serve you well and make you proud to be a part of what is now Defeat Duchenne Canada, and to make a difference for all those boys who are just like Jesse. Thank you very much, and Lisa, back to you.
Thank you, John. So really exciting news. Like John said, there will be lots more information to follow in the weeks and months ahead. And I hope, like me, you're just feeling an enormous sense of gratitude, pride, and excitement about all that has been and all that is still to come. Throughout 2025, we will celebrate, reflect, and continue to push for advancements, better access to safe and affordable treatments for Canadians, and to bring together and support Duchenne families nationwide. Thank you all for being here tonight to help us kick off our 30th anniversary. I encourage all of you to join us this year in raising funds, sharing your stories, advocating for enhanced treatment and care, and celebrating all that we have to look forward to in the very near future. I want to say, here's to 30 years. I will say cheers to 30 years, and I hope you'll join me in that toast. 30 years of progress with so much more to come. I hope many of you will plan to stay with us for our grant announcement, which is beginning right away. We have lots of exciting things to share with you through that as well. But many thanks again for your impactful contributions and ongoing support. Each of you is a special member of our Defeat Duchenne family of families.